The Propel Endeavor S is an electric skateboard that offers you the ability to go out on rough off-road adventures while simultaneously being a comfortable city commuter. And as you can see, it doesn't look like your typical electric skateboard. It has a bunch of interesting components that make it very unique. So let's take a closer look at the Endeavor S to better understand how it works, what makes it such a versatile electric skateboard, and most importantly, if this is the right electric skateboard for you. The price of the Propel Endeavor S is $999 US, and for what it offers, this is some insane value, as you'll soon see. There is also the Endeavor Pro model for $1,799, which is basically a completely jacked up version of the Endeavor S. This is primarily a Propel Endeavor S review because that's the model that I have. However, I will also sprinkle some of the upgrades that the Pro has throughout the review to help you decide which would be best for you. And as a side note, to make things even crazier, there is a Propel X4S, which is a four-wheel drive electric skateboard that looks totally insane. I won't be covering that one today, but I do encourage you to go check it out. You can find a link to that one in the description. The total length of the Endeavor S is 44.4 inches, however the length of the deck's platform where you are able to stand is 26.7 inches. I naturally prefer a wider stance, and initially this board felt a tad short to me. However, it has a long wheelbase, so I actually felt very stable standing on this deck. The deck is made of maple and the enclosure underneath runs across the entire deck, so it's completely solid with zero flex. But as you'll see later on when we look at the trucks, the stiffness does not compromise the comfort of this e-board. Because of its size, it takes up a lot of space when storing it, and it weighs 37.4 pounds or 17 kilos, which makes it cumbersome to lug around and lift in and out of the car. However, when you compare it to other electric skateboards in this category, it actually sits on the lighter end of the scale. The Endeavor Pro has the exact same deck specs, except that it is made of carbon fiber instead of maple and weighs in at 43 pounds or 19.5 kilograms. Both the Endeavor S and Pro models run 8-inch inflatable all-terrain tires. If we take a closer look at the tread, we can see that the center is quite slick while the outer edges are knobbly. The slick center helps to maintain traction when riding on paved roads, while when riding on off-road surfaces, the knobbles create some extra grip to prevent slipping around, which is especially prevalent when cornering on gravel or grass trails. This design of mixing both street-style tread with off-road tread isn't anything new and is often found on car and bike tires. However, it's rarely used in the eSkate industry. The Propel website recommends running the tires at 25 psi, which I thought to be quite soft. Now, I would recommend running 25 psi for off-road riding, but something closer to 35 psi for street riding. And if you're doing a bit of both, go for the middle ground. The optimal tire pressure will also depend on your weight and riding style, so play around with it a bit and find what works best for you. These tires make up a significant portion of why the Endeavor e-boards feel so great on both street and off-road terrains. The other main component that plays a massive role in the ride feel of the Endeavor is the trucks, if we can even call them that. Really, they look more like modified car wheel axles. Propel call them a coil-over shock-supported independent suspension system, which is a bit of a mouthful, and the way they work is quite technical. What's important to know here is that each wheel has its own suspension with 50 millimeters of travel and are able to move independently of each other. This means that if one wheel happens to go over a large bump, it's not going to cause its parallel wheel to move unexpectedly. At the same time, the suspension will absorb the majority of that force, leaving you almost oblivious to any movements underneath the deck. I can't understate how amazing this is. The suspension system on the Endeavor will allow you to go on very long rides without fatiguing your feet. I've come back from 1-hour rides on some e-boards completely exhausted because I spent the whole time trying to keep the board stable and letting my feet absorb all of the vibrations from the road. This problem is pretty much non-existent on the Endeavor. The wheels and the large trucks give the Endeavor 11 centimeters of ground clearance, so you're able to tackle and go over terrain that isn't possible on other electric skateboards. I went up against street curbs and large rocks and had no issues whatsoever. There are also some really handy belt guards that will take the impact of any surprising rocks or curbs and prevent damage from occurring to your belts. The battery in the Propel Endeavor S is 12S3P with 666 watt-hours, which is absolutely massive. The max range is 28 miles or 45 kilometers with a 165 pound or 75 kilogram rider, and 17 miles or 28 kilometers for a 220 pound or 100 kilogram rider. I love that Propel offers two different ranges dependent on weight because it does play a big role in the amount of range that you will get. On the upgraded Endeavor Pro, the battery is 12S5P with 1,110 watt-hours, and the max range is 44 miles or 71 kilometers for a 165 pound or 75 kilogram rider, and 31 miles or 50 kilometers for a 220 pound or 100 kilogram rider. These are huge batteries and understandably have long charging times, with the Endeavor S being 4 hours and the Pro being 5 hours. Both of the Endeavor models run 2x6374 belt drive motors with a theoretical power output of 3,000 watts per motor, but theoretical means nothing if it can't be produced in the real world. The top speed of the Endeavor S is 28 miles per hour or 45 kilometers an hour, and oddly enough, the Pro has a top speed of 50 kilometers an hour or 31 miles per hour. Considering they both use the same motors, you'd think that they would have the same speed capabilities, but the added speed in the Pro comes from the ESC, which we'll talk about in just a sec. On my ride, I hit a top speed of 25 miles per hour, which is 40.7 kilometers an hour, and that was while riding up a slight incline. There was also more room in the throttle, I just wasn't game enough to push it any further. It's insanely fast, but just as importantly, it was extremely stable. I didn't notice any signs of speed wobbles. For the hill climb test, I rode up my usual slope, which has an average of 8% across the entire length, with the steepest part being around 13%. And the Propel S smashed it. It was still moving at 14 miles per hour or 22.7 kilometers an hour at the steepest point of the hill with no signs of slowing down. It has a max hill grade ability of 30%, which I think is possible. Meanwhile, the Endeavor Pro has a climbing ability of 35%. Again, this added power will be coming from the ESC. The difference between the Endeavor S and Pro is that the S has a standard ESC, while the Pro's ESC is built upon the VESC framework. Basically, the VESC are more customizable and the power outputs can be controlled programmatically. This allows Propel to write specific software to maximize the potential power of the motors and battery. On the flip side, the power on the Endeavor S is limited by the capabilities of the ESC, but the benefit of using a regular ESC is that it is cheap to set up and keeps the cost of the Endeavor S low. The remote for the Endeavor S is simple with all of the major features you would need. It has a thumb wheel for acceleration and braking, 4 acceleration modes, 4 braking modes, reverse, cruise control, and an LED display to show riding information like current speed, battery levels, and an odometer, among other useful info. Don't be fooled by the labels on this remote. This is not the reverse button, it only cycles through the riding modes. To put it in reverse, you double click the power button. Usually the power button on electric skateboards is located on the enclosure under the deck. However, on the Endeavor, Propel has conveniently placed it on top of the rear wheel axle for easy access. This is a small design feature that makes riders' lives so much easier. As for the Endeavor Pro remote, it's slightly different because of the VESC. It has a different button layout and screen layout, and it has smart reverse where after you brake and come to a complete stop, if you continue holding the brakes on, it will move in reverse at about 2% power. This is really handy for making sharper turns by going backwards and forwards just a little bit until you get around. In the box you get The board, remote, board charger, a small USB cable to charge the remote, 2 spare belts, an Allen key or hex key, a spanner, and a user manual. Overall, I love the Propel Endeavor S. If you're looking for the most comfortable commuter board, look no further. And if you want to go out on off-roading adventures, this stacks up as one of the best. But where it really shines is being able to do both of those riding styles really well without compromise on either. And for the sub $1,000 price tag, it offers the best value for money electric skateboard in this category. That's my Propel Endeavor S electric skateboard review. I hope I've helped make your search for the best electric skateboard a little bit easier. If I have, slam the like button and hit subscribe to stay up to date with the best and latest electric skateboard reviews and news. Thanks for watching. As always, ride safe out there, eSkaters, and I'll see you soon.